Dream job. It was my dream job, my career job. I was going to be there forever. I loved it. I had a great CEO. I walked in as the CHRO, and my CEO was so engaged with what HR was doing. He knew what needed to happen, and he allowed me to do what I needed to do. In a very short time, I got promoted to the VP, Chief Administrative Officer. I was overseeing HR as well as other operations within the business. I started making changes. I started doing things that no one else had done before. I was also the only female on the executive team in a group of 7. I started walking into board meetings with data, real data, not fluffy data, but data that showed that we were strategically moving forward as an organization, that I was making changes. The board started to jump on. They were all about the data. They started wanting accountability. They saw things happening, and they saw that HR was someone that needed to be in the room and someone that people needed to start answering to. Not everybody loved that. Everyone has Walter in the organization. Walter, you know, the ones that don't answer your emails, that don't answer your phone calls, that cancel meetings on you on a regular basis, that are constantly undermining your authority and also challenging you and eroding trust behind the scenes by going to the board member every single time that you make a decision. That one person that's been with the organization forever but should have gotten fired a long time ago. When Farm Credit hired me, they knew exactly what they were getting. They were not only getting a seasoned HR professional, they were getting the vice mayor of the city of Chico. They knew that I was in an elected position, and I was elected after a lot of hard work campaigning. So when a congressman comes to you as an elected official, as the vice mayor, and asks you to do an ad opposing his opponent, you do it because that's what you do for your counterparts. I did everything I needed to do. Well, let me just share. This is the part of the story that gets really interesting. This congressman, I received a check that week that the ad ran for $10,000 to give to the congressman for his election. I also booked an 8-seat table for 8 people from our organization to attend a fundraising event for this congressman. A few days after the ad runs, about 3 or 4 days after the ad ran, I get an email for a 5 p.m. calendar invite. We all in HR know what a 5 p.m. calendar invite with no context, no agenda means. I went home, went to sleep, got up the next morning, got dressed, because that's what you do when you have the receipts. When you know that you have done your job and that you have built up your credibility and that you have the data to show the success of your role, you walk into it. Because the CFO was also on that meeting invite, I went into his office and I said, "What is this 5 o'clock meeting about?" He says, his face said it all before his mouth could speak. And I said, "Am I getting fired?" And he said, "Renette, I can't tell you these things." And he goes, please don't say anything. And I said, "You said absolutely nothing. I got it from your face. I figured it out without you saying a word." I left his office. I called an attorney. I packed my office and I got ready for that 5 p.m. phone call meeting. See, the ad was the excuse. It was not the reason that they fired me. My CEO fought for me in that position. He fought and he pushed, and he also retired shortly after my termination. I'll let that sit with you. We settled in 3 months because I spent 4 years showing the data. They had absolutely nothing on me to show that I was not a good employee. And later, my CFO called me to share with me that the board had shared that they had a really hard time having a female executive on the executive team. 1 female executive out of 7, 1 female board member out of 11. You do the math. So my CEO left and I left. You know what they did? They hired back everybody that we were holding accountable that we had fired. And guess what? They ended up firing them again. It's almost like when you hear these people are getting married and then they get a divorce and then they marry their spouse again and they get a divorce again. It's like marrying your ex. Sometimes it works out, I guess. Sometimes it doesn't. So I find dark humor in some of this, because why would you fire a well-known HR professional that did a political campaign, someone with experience, someone that was moving your organization forward, and think that you would get away with it? Hilarious from a distance and with a settlement. Resilience is how I got through it. I want to share that resilience is something that you have to find within yourself. When I found it, it was still standing. I was still standing. Resilience was there. The data got me through. That was the resilience. The congressman that supported me through it all, resilience. The assemblyman that called the attorney that gave me the discount because they knew my case was one that they could win with no problem. The people that came up to me in the public and said, "You're going to sue, right?" You know what else was resilience? Was that senator that called the wrong farm credit and yelled at the CEO for firing me. But he called. Resilience is somewhere within you. You have to find it in times, and you usually are going to find it in the most difficult of times. I want to know how resilience is showing up in the room for you. When does resilience show up for you? How are you going to show up in those rooms and be resilient?